Hello students, today we are going to do intestines, right? So this is the specimen of intestine. Now the intestine, it is the longest part of digestive tube and it is divided into long, less distensible small intestine and shorter, more distensible, that is large intestine. Food has to be digested, metabolized and stored for expulsion in intestine. Now starting with small intestine, anatomically this small intestine extends from pylorus of stomach to ileocecal junction over here, right? And here is the pyloric end of stomach. It is about 6 meter long and it is divided into 3 parts. Duodenum, see this is duodenum, then these coils, they are of jejunum and ileum, right? The proximal fixed part, which is about 25 centimeter long, it is duodenum and it is principally retroperitoneal and fixed, right? This duodenum, it receives chyme from stomach, bile from gallbladder and pancreatic juice from the pancreas. It is intimately related with the pancreas and extrahepatic biliary apparatus. So clinically it is considered as a separate entity, and this duodenum you have already seen in your previous class, right? Now coming to the jejunum and ileum. These are the coils of jejunum and ileum. The jejunum and ileum, they are principally concerned with digestion and absorption of digested food. Hence these two parts, they together forms small intestine proper, right? Now starting with jejunum and ileum part of small intestine first. Jejunum and ileum that together forms small intestine proper. It extends from duodenojejunal flexure, right? Duodenojejunal flexure over here. Duodenum, it is removed from this specimen. So over here will be the duodenojejunal flexure. It extends from the duodenojejunal flexure to the ileocecum junction, right? See, this is cecum and this is ileocecal junction. You can demarcate it with the presence of this appendix, right? This is ileum, this is cecum and this is ileocecal junction. Its upper 2/5 part forms the jejunum and lower 3/5 part forms the ileum. However, there is no definite line of demarcation in both, right? Now the jejunum and ileum, they are suspended from posterior abdominal wall by a large fold of peritoneum and it is called as mesentery. See, this is mesentery by which it is suspended with the posterior abdominal wall, and hence small intestine, it enjoy a considerable mobility. Now structure of small intestine, it corresponds to its functional requirements. Basically today we will be discussing the gross difference in the between the jejunum and ileum, right? Now starting with the first difference, right? Starting with the first difference, the walls of the jejunum, see the walls of the jejunum, they are more thicker and more vascular than the wall of the ileum, right? This is the first difference. Second difference, the lumen of the jejunum is wider and often found empty. This is the lumen of the jejunum. It is wider and often found empty than ileum. In case of ileum, it has a narrower and often found full lumen in case of ileum, right? This is the second difference. Third difference is about the mucous membrane. Mucous membrane, it is thrown into more longer and closely set circular fold in case of jejunum. And these circular folds, see if you open the wall of this jejunum, we will find the circular folds over here which are closely set and more, and these circular folds in the mucous membrane, it is known as plica circularis, right? Whereas in case of ileum, these circular folds, that means the plica circularis, they are smaller and sparsely set. They are somewhat distant, right? This is the third difference. Now coming to the fourth difference, in case of jejunum, villi are more larger, thicker and leaf-like, whereas in case of ileum, the villi are less, shorter, thicker and finger-like. Another characteristic feature of the ileum is that it possesses many more aggregated lymph follicles, that is pair patches in its wall than the jejunum. Now if we talk about the mesentery, see, if we talk about the mesentery over here, this has been dissected to show you the structures in the mesentery. So if we talk about the mesentery, it contains less fat and it becomes translucent between vasa recta, and these are known as peritoneal windows in jejunum, right? This one, these are known as peritoneal windows in jejunum. They are transparent or translucent. But in case of ileum, mesentery contains more fat and there are no peritoneal windows. You can see they appear like opaque, right? No peritoneal windows between vasa recta, right? So this is about the difference in the peritoneal windows. What are peritoneal windows? They are because of the presence of fat in the mesentery, right? Another difference is in reference to the arterial arcades. Now see, there are 1 or 2 rows of arterial arcades with long vasa recta in jejunum. Let's see over here. You can see this one. These are arterial arcades, and in case of jejunum there are 1 or 2 rows of the arterial arcades with long vasa recta, whereas in case of the ileum there are 4 or 5 rows of the arterial arcades with shorter vasa recta, right? So this is basically the difference of the jejunum and ileum. We'll have a quick revision for all the differences. First is the walls in jejunum, they are thicker and more vascular than ileum. Second difference, lumen in jejunum, it is wider and often found empty than ileum. Then third difference, plica circularis, that is the circular folds in the mucous membrane. They are more and long and they are closely set in case of jejunum than ileum. In ileum, these plica circularis, they are smaller and sparsely set. Then about these peritoneal windows, in case of jejunum, it contains less fat, the mesentery contains less fat, and we have a transparent or translucent peritoneal windows. And these peritoneal windows, we find arterial arcades in this one. There are 1 or 2 rows of the arterial arcades with longer vasa recta. However, in ileum, there are 4 to 5 rows of arterial arcades. Here you can see 4 to 5 rows of arterial arcades with short vasa recta and no peritoneal windows over here in ileum. So this is about the small intestine. Next, we'll start with the large intestine. We just did small intestine. Next is the large intestine, right? Now see, this large intestine, it is 1.5 meter long. It extends from the cecum in iliac fossa to the anus in the perineum, right? Apart from the transverse colon and sigmoid colon over here, it is mostly fixed in position than small intestine. Now see, the main functions of large intestine, they are absorption of water from fluid contents in it to help to form the feces, and also the storage, lubrication and expulsion of feces. Now we'll be seeing the parts of large intestine. Large intestine, it is divided into 4 parts, right? We have already done, this is ileocecal junction over here. See, this is the ileum, this is cecum. Ileum is a part of small intestine, cecum is a part of large intestine, and this is ileocecal junction. Now the first part of, and this is appendix, right? Now the first part of large intestine is the cecum, right? This peg like this is cecum. Then second part is the colon, this whole length, this is colon. Then third is the rectum over here and the anal canal. Now see, the colon, it is further divided into 4 parts. Starting from here is the ascending colon, then this is transverse colon, then descending colon and sigmoid colon, right? So these are the 4 parts of the colon. Now point here is to note all the parts of large intestine, they are retroperitoneal and fixed, except appendix, this one, and transverse colon and this sigmoid colon. which are intraperitoneal, and also they possess mesenteries. Now mesenteries of these parts, they are termed as mesoappendix, right? Then transverse mesocolon over here, this mesentery of this transverse colon is known as transverse mesocolon, and sigmoid mesocolon over here. Now starting with the parts of the large intestine, see cecum and appendix you will be studying in a separate class, and now we'll be doing ascending colon. See, it is an upward continuation of cecum, and it is about 5-inch long, extends from cecum at the level of ileocecal orifice to the inferior surface of the right lobe of liver. Here will be the liver, and it reaches to the inferior surface of right lobe of liver, right, where it bends to form this transverse colon, where it bends to the left to form transverse colon, right? And this ascending colon, it lies in right paracolic gutter, and it is covered by peritoneum on the front and sides, which binds it to the posterior abdominal wall, right? Then next is the transverse colon. This transverse colon, it is the longest part, approximately 20 inches in the length. It is the most mobile part of large intestine, and it extends from this bend to this bend. Now the name of these bends, see over here, this is on the right side, so right colic flexure, right? Another name is the hepatic flexure of colon, because it is related to the liver, right? So this is the hepatic flexure of colon. And this bend, this is on the left side, and here will be the spleen. You have already done the colic impression on the spleen. So this is the left colic flexure or splenic flexure of colon. This splenic flexure of colon, it also marks an impression on the visceral surface of the spleen, right? This transverse colon, it extends from the right colic flexure or hepatic flexure of colon to the left colic flexure or splenic flexure of the colon. See, strictly speaking, this transverse colon, it is not that transverse, but it forms a dependent loop in front of the loops of the small intestine between right and left colic flexures, right? Now next is the descending colon over here. This is the descending colon. It is about 25 centimeter long, and it is more deeply located than ascending colon. Now we'll see from where to where it extends. It extends from the left colic flexure to the front of the, over here will be to the front of left external iliac artery at the level of pelvic brim, right, where it becomes continuous with the pelvic or sigmoid colon. Now coming to the last and fourth part of the colon, that is a sigmoid colon. It is about 15 inches long. It connects descending colon with the rectum, right? Descending colon with the rectum, and it is S-shaped, so its name is sigmoid colon. Now it extends from the lower end of descending colon at the left pelvic inlet, where it becomes continuous with the rectum, right? In the pelvis, it lies in front of the bladder and uterus below the loops of the ileum. See, these are the loops of ileum, right? So this is about the parts of the large intestine. We started with the cecum, right? Then ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon. Now coming to the most distinguishing feature of the large intestine. Now the most distinguishing, or we can say the cardinal features of large intestine, they are actually 3 in number. First is presence of Taenia coli, then second is appendices epiploicae, and the third is seculations or hostrations, right? Now starting with the very first, that is Taenia coli. Now what is Taenia coli? See, this Taenia coli, they are 3 ribbon-like bands of the longitudinal muscle cord. These bands converge proximally at the base of the appendix over here and spread out distally to become continuous with the longitudinal muscle cord of the rectum. Thus, Taenia coli, they are present on all the parts of the colon and cecum, right? Now coming to its location, see in the cecum, ascending colon and descending colon, The position of tinea are anterior, that is known as tinea libra, posteromedial, that is known as tinea mesocolica, and here it is beautifully seen. You can see these are thin three ribbon-like bands, right? So these are tinea mesocolica as it is located on the posteromedial part, right? And posterolateral part is the tinea augmentalis. But in case of the transverse colon, the corresponding positions like tinea libra will be present inferiorly and tinea mesocolica will be present on posteriorly over here, and last tinea augmentalis that is present on the superior aspect respectively. So this is about the three types of the tinea coli based on the location where it is present. Now next, cardinal feature is the appendices epiploicae. Now see, what are appendices epiploicae? They are small bags of visceral peritoneum covered with fat. You can easily appreciate this one, right? They are the small bags of visceral peritoneum filled with fat attached to the tinea of the large intestine. You can see over here, right? See, these are appendices epiploicae. Thus they are absent to the appendix, rectum and anal canal. And these appendices epiploicae, they are most numerous on the sides of the sigmoid colon and posterior surface of the transverse colon over here, right? Then next and last distinguishing feature of the large intestine is the saculation or hostration, right? See, the saculation, they are the series of the pouches or dilatation in the wall of cecum and colon between the tinea. You can see, I'll show you here. Saculation is like this one, bends, we can say. There are a series of the pouches or dilatation. You can see these pouches or dilatation, right? They are produced because length of the tinea falls short of the length of the circular muscle cord. And the saculations, they are responsible for the characteristic puckered appearance of the large intestine, right? You can see the puckered appearance of this large intestine. The main reason behind it is a characteristic feature, that is saculations, right? So this is about the large intestine, its part and its characteristic features. They are tinea coli, that is a ribbon-like bands, then appendices epiploicae, small bags of the visceral peritoneum filled with fat, and the saculations over here, right? See, these characteristic features, they are only present in the large intestine, all the three, and they are absent in the small intestine. I hope you people have understood this intestine, right? Thank you.